Hello and welcome to another AGS Inspire Flip Masterclass. This week we're looking at the subject of critique. As with all of our other Flip Masterclasses, I'd advise you to take some notes throughout the session, pause it, rewind it, watch it again, and do any further research that you'd like to, especially via the further reading links which you will have on the right hand side of the TED window that you're looking at right now. So, what do we mean by critique and what do we mean by an ethic of excellence? Well, really the whole idea is wanting to get students to really produce the best work that they possibly can. And this links right back in with our student standards that we delivered in the first week of assemblies. And we told all the students that this year we're not going to be accepting substandard work. And we want all of our students to really pride themselves on producing excellence and producing the best possible work that they can do. I really got into this when I read a book by Ron Berger, which is An Ethic of Excellence, which I've got some copies of in my office, and one that we're going to roll out via the book club in the next couple of weeks. And I read the book and I was hugely inspired by that, and also I was able to actually meet Ron himself, and it was an amazing opportunity to kind of see inside the book and find out a little bit more about it. The idea really is that students never really hand anything in until they think it's perfect, and it is really the truly finished article. And I want to unpick that a little bit now. And then we're going to actually watch a video within this video towards the end, and then hopefully the session on Tuesday will be very, very practical, and we're going to actually be doing a lot of critique ourselves. So to begin with, we always want our students to produce the best work, and we've done a lot of work over the last few months on success criteria to make sure our students know exactly what an A grade is or what a level 6A is. And I think that that's been very, very good, and that's certainly made a real consistent approach across the school. But I still think there's work to be done on that. And actually, just by putting a few statements on the board and telling students what we feel an A grade is that enough? And in his book, Ron talks about actually physically showing students, what an A grade piece of work is, or what a 6A is compared to a 5A. And actually, by having these examples of work, either photographs, copies, artifacts, whatever it may be in your subject, and actually going through with the students, not just physically showing them and saying this is an A, but starting to get the students to actually critique it and get the students to actually pick apart what's good about it, what could be improved further, and to spend some time at the start of a piece of work or start of a project actually looking through different examples of work that has been previously done at various standards, and getting the students to put their kind of examiner's hats on and be able to really go through it with a fine-tooth comb and say what's good about it and what could be done better. Once we start to do that, once we start to get students into the mindset of the examiner and actually picking apart what's good about it, what could be improved, how could it be developed further, we then really start to make that success criteria very, very visual for them. And I think in our own minds, when we're doing that, let's say we're doing lesson observations or we're looking at a work scrutiny, it makes it so much easier, and we can really see where it can be improved. And I think that's something that we could do better in classrooms. So it's the next idea is then, well, once we've done that, and once students have actually seen for themselves what we would like, what the different criteria is, and how they could develop it further, they then need to set about actually trying to achieve that. And it's really important that Ron kind of states that he completely changed his terminology and the way he kind of spoke about the students' work. And every piece of work the students did was actually then called a draft. And it was all about a drafting process. That actually, it's not a finished article, it's just a first draft or a second draft. And that was really key to developing the mindsets of the students, so that they understood that it wasn't the fact of just handing it in and that's it, it's done, I've met the deadline, and you can't really tell me off because it's been handed in. Well, all you've submitted is your first draft. And I think I mentioned this in one of the sessions a few weeks ago, that actually we would never really, if we were asked to do a really important report for school or as a business or when you're at university, would you have ever handed in your first attempt, your first draft? And we've probably all looking now and thinking, well, no, I made lots of changes, I got someone else to reread it, I changed bits and bobs, but I kept going back to it. Well, if we know that, why do we let students hand in their first draft? And I think that's key to really getting into the mindsets of the students, that you can never, ever, ever produce your very best if it's on your first go. We always need to refine, change, adapt, add, build, etc., etc. to make it actually the very, very best it can be. So secondly, once they have done their first draft, it's all about critique, and it's all about actually students critiquing their own and their peers' work. And there's research out there that says that actually 80% of feedback students get is kind of peer feedback in terms of actually throughout the lesson and speaking to them, what do you think of this and what do you think of that? And that's really important. But it also suggests that a lot of that peer feedback is actually incorrect, or it's not effective because it's not detailed enough, or the language that that people are using, or it's not mature critique or feedback. So we need to actually teach our students how to give good critique. This isn't something that you can just expect students to be able to do. They need to be developed, and they need to be mature enough and responsible and sensible enough to be able to do this in a constructive way. So a great way of doing this is to actually do what's called a gallery critique. And what happens is students have their work, they leave it on their desk, and actually you get the whole class to rotate around everyone's piece of work. And you have maybe post-it notes or a piece of paper next to it for critique, and they go around and they have to write maybe maybe 2 or 3 different points on there for what's good about it and what could be developed further. And what happens is 2 things. When everyone has been around the room, when you get back to your seat, the first thing you have is you have potentially 25 different viewpoints on your work. Lots of comments, lots of positive comments, so you feel really good about your work, but also some key areas that you can improve on. Not only that, but possibly more important is once you've got back, not only have you got the comments on your work, you've also seen 20, 25 or 30 other people's work, and you've got ideas of, actually I really liked how they did that, or I like how they did that, or actually mine's really good because I don't like the way they've done that. And you come back and you've then got some real individual action points to move forward on. And we've done a lot of work on dirt time at the start of the lessons. This fits in perfectly with that, because you've really got that individual critique about your work from your peers. But whilst I think the reason which is more important than the feedback from the teacher, although that's really important because we're the professionals and we're the ones that are assessing this work, is that the teacher is only feeding back on that one piece of work. When the peers are feeding back on their own work, they're able to see everyone else's work in the classroom, and they're able to gain ideas and suggestions and experience from other people. And that's really, really important, especially when you've got a mixed ability class, because there are students in there who can see work at varying levels. And I think that's something that, when I read the book, it was kind of a light bulb moment for me, that I read it and said, why have I never done this before? It just made total sense. And it was something that I just thought, it made me feel very inadequate, to be honest, as a teacher. And I thought, I can't believe I've not done this before at this level. And yes, we've swapped books and we've peer marked, but that's not real critique. It's kind of ticking a box. When we're doing this at this level and we're really teaching students about how to critique, then I think that's really, really valuable. Within the book as well, and we'll explore this in the session on Tuesday, and you can read about this in one of the further reading blog posts that I'm going to link to, is also the fact that there needs to be a set of clear rules for critique, and certain words are banned in Ron Berger's classroom. Things like "it's all right" or "it's okay," why was it good? Well, it's all right. It looks good. It needs to be detailed, and we need to develop and train our students to be able to give precise, accurate and honest feedback, because it needs to be honest. But there's obviously a fine line between honest and being kind of sarcastic or being nasty to people. But like anything, you need to establish the ground rules so that students feel that they still feel in a safe environment and a comfortable environment where they can do that, but they know that they're going to be getting some honest feedback at the same time. And I think also a little sort of a sub-product of this is that if you know as a student that your work is going to be critiqued in a kind of gallery critique by the whole class, does that give you extra motivation to really produce your best? Because do you want the other 30 people seeing your work if it's only just sort of thrown in at the last minute and you haven't really put any effort into it? So it starts to get a bit more motivation for the students themselves. And then the next stage of this is the redrafting. Once the students have got that, have had the critique, they then go back and they start to redraft, and they maybe would submit their second draft or their third draft. And all the time, their work is getting better and better and better. Now, I know a few of you may be sat there and saying, well, look, John, I haven't got time to do this. I've got a lot of content to get through my course. I don't have time to accept second and third and fourth drafts. My answer to that is I completely understand, and I understand the position that a lot of teachers are in terms of the sheer volume of content to get through in the time scales we have. But the counter argument to that is, do we want to just literally get kids from A to Z and get them through on substandard work just because there's lots of content? And if we really want students to be producing the very, very best, then we need to be thinking about, rather than just saying I haven't got time. Well, we have got time. It's about how we use that time, and do we need to go back to our schemes and look at how we can maybe reschedule certain things, or how we can build in that time? And are there things in there where that actually, do we really need to do these things? How can we build more time in for redrafting, so actually our students are producing the very, very best work? And if we're not wanting our students to produce the very, very best work they can, then we need, I think, have a good think about why we're doing this in the first place. So I think that's really important, and the redrafting is important. We've started to do that with our dirt time anyway. So we're kind of laying the ground, the groundwork and the foundations for that. But it's about going further, and it's about really having students in that mindset of really, it's never really finished until it's perfect. And I know that we're not going to get to perfect, but if that's what the students are thinking, rather than just everything's going to be handed in once, then I think we're going to be starting to change the mindsets of our students, and that's really what we need to be doing. So that's it in terms of the basic outline and how critique works in the classroom. I'm going to leave the rest now to Ron Berger himself to actually explain, and I've got a short video here, a 6-minute video called Austin's Butterfly, and some of you may have seen it before. It's had a huge amount of hits on YouTube. And it's Ron talking to a kind of a primary school setting class about a school and about a child who got critique on drawing a butterfly. And yes, this is in an artwork kind of sense, but I want you to think about this. It doesn't really matter whether it's art or whether it's a piece of a piece of an essay, a piece of text in English, or some calculations in maths. We can do this critique in any subject, and it's about thinking outside the box. And looking at this and thinking, how can I take this into my classroom, and watching this and saying, well, what was the benefit to the critique and the feedback that this student got, and actually redrafting. I think it's a fantastic video. We'll explore it more when we get into the session on Tuesday. The Tuesday session can be very, very practical. We are going to be actually critiquing things and not putting around the room and doing a gala critique, so that should be really interesting. There are some further reading links. I think there's 2 blog posts for you to read. One which kind of spells out a lot of the Ron Berger work and how a teacher has adapted this and put it in their classroom. And there's another one that actually shows very specifically a kind of a gallery critique approach to a piece of coursework. So that's it. Hope you've enjoyed watching it, and I'll see you on Tuesday. Thank you.
What would you guys say to teachers if they're not getting high quality work? Could they learn something from this, and what would you say to them that they could do differently in their classrooms?
This is a story called Austin's Butterfly, and it's a true story about a first grade boy, and his name is Austin, and he goes to school, or used to go to school, in a town called Boise, Idaho. And in his class in Boise, Idaho, they were studying butterflies, and he had to do a project. His job in first grade was to draw a butterfly, and this is the butterfly that he picked. Austin had to use this photograph as his model, and he had to draw an accurate scientific drawing of this butterfly. This is called a tiger swallowtail.
I knew it!
Can you tell, Toby, why it's called tiger?
Because it kind of has the stripes of the tiger right there.
Good. So here was Austin's job. He was supposed to do a scientific drawing of that butterfly. But remember, Austin was only in first grade. And you know what he did? He forgot to look like a scientist carefully. He got his paper and he just started to draw the image of a butterfly that he had in his head. And he wasn't looking like a scientist, and so this is what he drew.
Whoa.
It's not bad, and it is a butterfly, but does it look exactly like this?
No.
No, it doesn't yet. It doesn't look exactly like this yet. Luckily, this wasn't a regular school where Austin went. It was an expeditionary learning school, just like Przumscott School. And so they didn't look at this and say, good, Austin, you're done. They said, Austin, good start. Now we can start giving you critique so you can do a second draft and make it better. and a third draft and make it better, and you can make it much, much closer to this, and he was ready to go. All of the first graders in his critique group sat on the floor like you guys are, and they decided to split their advice into two kinds. First, just the shape of the wings. And then when the shape was right, they'd give him advice about the pattern inside the wings. Alia, what would you say?
You can make it much pointier.
Good. These wings could be much pointier. Who else would add something? Atak, what would you say?
How about the angle? Because, not to be mean about
Yes.
the angle, it's just not exact, so...
Okay, so show me. Come on up here, Atak. Show me what you would ask him to do slightly differently.
Like to make it a little longer,
Longer where? Draw where you would do it.
right there.
Okay, so pull this out longer.
Yeah.
That's very specific, Atak. Thank you. Jamila, what would you say?
It's like triangle.
Good. Jamila, I love that. So you're saying more like a triangle shape. And I agree. Well, you know what? Those first graders came up with most of those same ideas. And you know what Austin said? He said, okay, I'll go try. And he went back to his seat and he drew this.
Wow.
Does this look more like a triangle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did he go out further, like Atak was suggesting?
Yes.
Did he add some jaggedness here,
Yes.
like Cindy? Did he get rid of that bottom thing?
Yes.
So he did listen to his friends, and he made it better. It's not perfect. Toby, what would you say?
I'd say don't put those little tail things so pointed in. I'd say put them more pointed down.
Good. Okay, and Ethan, what would you say?
I think you should make the wings like this, not like this.
Okay, he listened to his friends, and they said, this is really a lot better, Austin. That second draft really is better.
Yeah, maybe you can make a third one.
Good. Maybe he could make a third draft. And so he did this draft.
That's his third draft.
That's his third draft, Hadley. That's just right. Elijah, what do you notice there?
Well, one wing's more pointed than the other, and that side is a little bit higher than the others.
Good. Coburn?
Right here, it doesn't have the inside thing still.
Ah, okay. Needs a little bit more of that notch. So, do you think maybe he should do a fourth draft?
Yeah.
Well, that's just what he said. He said, shoot, okay, I got round again. I'll go back and do a fourth draft.
Listen.
He listened. Does it look more even like Elijah was suggesting?
Yes.
Yeah, and does it look like it's coming out a little sharper, like Cindy was suggesting? And like Attack was saying, it's a little, the angle looks a little better. So now Austin was feeling really good. He said, am I ready to add some pattern? And they said, okay, why don't you try adding some of the pattern? And he did.
He's good at it.
He is so good.
And then they said, Austin, you're ready for color.
Really?
Let's look at his last draft. And what do you think? Did it come out really good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually looks
Let me show you where he started, just to give you a quick reminder. And then, what do you think about how much progress he made? And Tak, what would you say about his progress?
He made like a lot of progress. He persevered doing it. His friends were honest with him.
What was it about the kinds of advice that they gave that allowed him to get better each time? Hassan?
Well, they told him what was wrong about it.
Did they say it's just wrong, or were they more specific than that?
They were more specific, but they weren't mean about it.
Great.
He
Hadley.
made 6 drafts.
And so is that something that other kids should learn from? What should we learn from that?
He can make other drafts if it's not right.
Good. So if it's not right, you can keep doing more drafts to make it better.
You just don't use things in your head. You want to use a sharp eye.
Good. He used the eyes of a scientist. Great.